The gun pressed cold against the driver's temple. 11:47 p.m. downtown Seattle. Richard Chen sat frozen in the back seat of the yellow taxi, watching. The robber's voice was rough. "Wallet! Phone! Now!" But Richard wasn't looking at the gun. He was looking at the driver's hands. They didn't shake. Not even slightly. Knuckles white on the steering wheel, but steady. Perfectly, impossibly steady. In the dim glow of the dashboard, Richard saw something else. Surgical scars. 4 parallel lines across both sets of knuckles. A pattern he'd seen before. A pattern that made his throat close. "I said move!" the robber shouted. The driver didn't move, didn't flinch. His eyes found Richard's in the rearview mirror, and Richard felt his entire world tilt. Those eyes. He knew those eyes. "Hello, Richard," the driver said. Calm, quiet. At each word like a nail in a coffin. Richard's blood turned to ice. That voice, that specific tone, the way his real name sounded in this stranger's mouth. Not a stranger. The driver's hands stayed steady on the wheel. "Or should I say, Robert Castellano?" The robber lowered his gun slightly, glancing at the driver. They shared a look, a nod. Richard Chen, tech CEO, self-made millionaire, man with a carefully constructed new life, understood 3 things in that moment. 1, this wasn't a robbery. 2, the gun was pointed at him, but the driver was the real threat. 3, he'd been in this taxi before. 47 times in 6 months. The same kind driver who knew his routine, who always played soft jazz, who never asked questions. The driver finally turned around. His face was older than the photos, carved by grief, but unmistakable. Jack Morrison, Special Forces, 23 years, dishonorably discharged after his daughter's death. Sarah Morrison's father. "You killed my daughter," Jack said. His hands still didn't shake. "Did you think I wouldn't find you?" The cab started moving. Not toward Richard's penthouse, toward something worse. 15 seconds earlier. Richard had stepped into the taxi outside the Fairmont Hotel, same as every Thursday night. Board meeting, scotch, home by midnight. "Evening, Mr. Chen," the driver had said. The kind one, always punctual. Richard had nodded, already checking emails. The taxi pulled away from the curb. 3 blocks. Normal route. Then the driver took a left instead of a right. "This isn't," Richard started. That's when the back door opened. A man in a ski mask slid in, gun already drawn. The driver didn't even glance back. And didn't slam the brakes. Didn't do anything a normal driver would do. He just kept driving. Richard's stomach had dropped. He'd looked at the driver's reflection in the mirror, searching for panic, for fear, for anything human. The driver had met his eyes and nodded, just once, deliberately. They'd planned this. Now, gun still at the driver's temple, Richard understood. The wrong turn 3 blocks ago wasn't random. The robber climbing in wasn't a coincidence. The driver's steady hands weren't courage. They were control. "You killed my daughter," Jack Morrison said again, turning fully now. The gun shifted, pointing at Richard instead. "Did you think I wouldn't find you?" Richard's mouth went dry. Sarah Morrison. The factory accident. 6 months ago. He'd thought he'd buried it. New city, new name, new life. I don't know what you're talking about," Richard whispered. Jack smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, you do. And so does everyone watching." He held up his phone. The screen glowed. Live 40,247 viewers 6 months earlier. Robert Castellano had stood in his Pennsylvania office watching the factory floor burn on the security monitors. 12 workers inside, equipment malfunction, faulty hydraulic press he'd known was broken for 8 months. Too expensive to fix. Profit margins were tight. He'd made a choice. Keep the factory running. Just 8 more months until the merger. Then he'd sell, and it would be someone else's problem. Except the press failed. Explosion. Fire. 12 dead before the sprinklers even engaged. Sarah Morrison, 28, quality control supervisor, had been the first body they'd pulled out. The investigators came. Robert had prepared, deleted emails, shredded maintenance reports, paid off the inspector who'd flagged the press twice, paid off the foreman who'd complained, paid the victims' families, too. Settlements with NDAs. Most took it. Grief made people practical. But Sarah's father didn't show up to the meeting. Jack Morrison. The lawyer said he'd vanished after the funeral. Dishonorable discharge from Special Forces years ago, history of PTSD, now unemployed. Robert's crisis manager had smiled. He's unstable. No credibility. If he makes noise, we'll paint him as a grieving drunk. Robert had agreed. Then he'd done something smarter. He'd disappeared, too. Liquidated assets. Changed his name legally. Richard Chen, tech consultant, moved to Seattle. Clean slate. 3 months later, he'd been in a taxi, and the driver had said, "New to Seattle?" Robert, now Richard, had said yes. "I'm new, too," the driver had said. "Fresh start, you know." Richard had smiled. Exactly. The driver's name tag read Jack. Richard never made the connection. Jack Morrison had held his daughter's hand in the hospital for 4 hours before they pronounced her dead. Burns over 70% of her body. She never regained consciousness. At the funeral, 12 caskets. Sarah's was closed. The company sent flowers. A lawyer with a check. $2 million and a piece of paper that said he could never speak about what happened. Jack had torn the check in half. "Mr. Morrison," the lawyer had said carefully, "the investigation found no negligence. It was an accident. This settlement is generous. Get out." The lawyer left. So did everyone else, eventually. Fellow veterans, Sarah's friends. Her mother had died years ago. Cancer. Sarah was all Jack had left. He'd spent the first month in a bottle, the second month planning. Special Forces teaches you to hunt. 23 years in Delta, he'd tracked terrorists through mountains, insurgents through cities. He knew surveillance, knew patience, knew how to become invisible. He'd started with Robert Castellano's digital footprint, took 3 weeks to find the asset liquidation, another week to trace the name change. Robert Castellano became Richard Chen, moved to Seattle, took a consultant position at a tech firm. Jack followed, got a taxi license, bought a cab, learned Richard's routine, where he lived, where he ate, where he drank every Thursday after board meetings. Then Jack started driving him. Once a week became twice. Richard never suspected. Why would he? Jack was polite, professional, invisible, the perfect driver. "You drove him 47 times?" The man in the ski mask, Marcus, retired Marine, Jack's old squad mate, had asked last week. 47, Jack confirmed. "Tonight's 48. Marcus had nodded. "You sure about this?" Jack's hands had been steady then, too. "I've never been more sure of anything." "Where are you taking me?" Richard's voice cracked. Jack drove in silence. The live stream counter climbed. 52,000 viewers now. Comments flooding in. "Is this real? Someone call the police. Who is Richard Chen?" Marcus kept the gun steady. "Phone on the floor. Slowly." Richard complied. His mind raced. They were heading south, away from downtown, toward the industrial district where the old factories stood. No, they couldn't be. "You know where we're going," Jack said. Not a question. Richard knew. The closed factory, the one that burned, the one he'd ordered demolished 2 months after the incident but never followed through. Too much paperwork, too much attention. It still stood, abandoned. "The route," Richard whispered, understanding dawning. You mapped my entire routine. Every version of it, Jack confirmed. Thursdays, you leave the Fairmont at 11:42 p.m. You're home by midnight. Your security guard does a perimeter check at 12:15. Anyone watching your penthouse would notice if you were late. Richard felt sick. So, you planned this for a Thursday, when no one expects you anywhere else until tomorrow morning, when your calendar is clear. Jack's eyes flicked to the mirror. You're very predictable, Richard. 6 months of data makes a pattern impossible to miss. The factory appeared in the distance. A burned-out windows, collapsed roof on the west side, chain-link fence, but the gate hung open. Jack had been here before, prepared this. Please, Richard said, his voice barely a whisper. Whatever you want. I want what you took from me. Jack turned the taxi through the gate. But since I can't have that, I'll settle for the truth. The headlights illuminated something against the factory wall. A camera, professional setup, tripod, ring light. This wasn't an interrogation. This was a broadcast.
Jack cut the engine. The factory loomed, skeletal in the taxi's headlights. Out, Marcus ordered. Richard stumbled from the car. His legs barely worked. The air smelled like ash even now, 6 months later. Like the building still remembered what happened inside. Jack opened the trunk, pulled out 2 duffel bags, handed one to Marcus. Inside, Jack said. They walked through the main entrance. The door hung crooked on one hinge. Richard's shoes crunched on broken glass. The darkness pressed close until Marcus flicked on a battery-powered floodlight. Richard stopped breathing. The walls were covered in paper. Photos, documents, printouts, string connecting them like a detective's murder board. But this wasn't theory. This was evidence. Center wall, 12 photos. The victims, professional headshots, family pictures, smiling faces. Sarah Morrison, front and center. Her college graduation photo. Left wall emails. Richard's emails. Subject: hydraulic press maintenance. Delay. Subject: Q4 profit margins. Cut costs wherever possible. Subject: Inspector report. Handle quietly. Right wall. Financial records. Wire transfers. Payoff amounts. Names of people Richard thought he'd buried. Marcus set up the camera while Jack plugged in more lights. The factory floor became a studio. How did you? Richard stared at the emails. These were deleted. Permanently. Nothing's permanent if you know where to look, Jack said. I had 6 months and a reason. You had lawyers and money. He turned. Guess which one matters more. Richard's eyes darted to the exit. Marcus blocked it. You have one chance, Jack said. He pressed record on the camera. The red light blinked. Confess. On camera. Everything you did. Everyone you paid. Why you let my daughter die. The live stream counter on Jack's phone. 89,000 viewers. Confess, and maybe you get to see a courtroom instead of... Jack's hand moved to his belt, to something Richard couldn't see. Or what? Richard's voice shook. You'll kill me? On camera? In front of 90,000 people. Jack smiled. The same smile from earlier. Cold. Empty. You really think the law is your biggest problem right now? No. Richard's jaw set. The fear drained from his face, replaced by calculation. You have no proof that will hold up in court. Those emails? Illegally obtained. That evidence? Inadmissible. Even if I confessed right now, any lawyer would get it thrown out. He stepped forward. You were dishonorably discharged, Jack. PTSD. Erratic behavior. I looked you up after Sarah died. Made sure you couldn't be a threat. His voice grew stronger. You kidnapped me. Held me at gunpoint. This whole thing is coercion. Anything I say here is worthless. Marcus glanced at Jack. Jack's expression didn't change. You think you're smart, Richard continued. 6 months of planning. Very impressive. But you forgot something. He pointed at the camera. The moment I walk out of here, my lawyers will destroy you. Stalking. Kidnapping. Unlawful imprisonment. You'll spend 20 years in prison for this stunt. Maybe, Jack said quietly. And that live stream? Showing my deleted emails? That's corporate espionage. Hacking. Another 10 years minimum. Richard was smiling now. You've built me the perfect defense. The grief-stricken father, unstable veteran, who went too far. The live stream exploded with comments. He's right though. This won't hold up in court. Jack's going to prison for this. Richard took another step. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn off that camera. We're going to forget this happened. And if you're smart, you'll disappear before. He lunged for Marcus's gun. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Richard dropped to the floor, clutching his chest. Blood spread across his shirt. His eyes went wide with shock, then terror, then nothing. He lay still. Jack stared at the body. His hands shook. Finally, after everything, they shook. Jesus Christ, Marcus breathed. Jack, you said. Then Richard gasped, sat up, frantically checking his chest. No wound, no blood. The blood was red paint in a burst pack. The bullet was a blank. I'm not a murderer, Jack said. Unlike you. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. Richard's face went white. You called them? Before we left downtown, Jack confirmed. They've been listening the whole time. Richard scrambled backward. If you called the police, they'll arrest you too. You kidnapped me. You. Jack pulled up his shirt. A wire, taped to his chest. Small black microphone, red light blinking. They've been listening since we left the Fairmont, Jack said. Every word you said, every threat you made, every truth you accidentally confirmed. Marcus pulled off his ski mask. Underneath, a clean-cut face, military haircut. He reached into his jacket, not for a weapon but for a badge. FBI, Special Agent Marcus Rivera. Your confession was coerced, Richard stammered. You said so yourself, it won't. Your confession to me won't hold up, Jack interrupted. But you didn't confess to me. You confessed to 89,000 people on a live stream. You confirmed the emails were real. You admitted you looked me up after Sarah died. After the accident you claimed to know nothing about. Jack stepped closer. And you threatened me with lawyers, money, power. All recorded. All witnessed. The sirens were close now. Flashing lights visible through the broken windows. The FBI has been investigating Morrison Chemical for months, Agent Rivera said. Wire fraud, bribery, corporate manslaughter. But we couldn't connect you to the cover-up. You were too careful. Offshore accounts, deleted records, paid silence. Until I gave them everything, Jack finished. 6 months of surveillance. Every person you paid. Every document you thought was destroyed. And tonight, your own words. Richard's phone, still on the taxi floor, buzzed. Once, twice, 50 times. News alerts. Tech CEO Richard Chun real identity revealed. Robert Castellano. Morrison Chemical cover-up. Live stream confession goes viral. Castellano stocks crash. $500 million lost in minutes. FBI vehicles surrounded the factory. Wait! Richard looked at Jack, truly seeing him for the first time. If you're working with the FBI, they'll protect you. You won't be charged. This was all legal. Jack's hands shook harder now. Yes. Then why do you look? Richard stopped. Understanding. You wanted me to fight back. You wanted me to go for the gun. You wanted an excuse. Jack said nothing. You wanted to kill me? Richard whispered. You just couldn't. FBI agents stormed through the entrance. 5 of them, tactical gear, weapons drawn. Robert Castellano, the lead agent, announced. You're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit bribery, and 12 counts of negligent homicide. They put Richard in cuffs. Read him his rights. He didn't resist, just kept staring at Jack. How long? Richard asked. How long have you been planning this? Since the day after her funeral, Jack said. His voice was hollow. I spent the first month drunk. The second month, I tried to kill myself. Put a gun in my mouth 3 times. Couldn't do it. The agents were checking the evidence on the walls, photographing everything. Agent Rivera stood beside Jack, protective. Then I remembered what Sarah used to say. Jack's eyes were distant. She'd say, "Dad, you can't fight every battle with a gun. Sometimes you have to be smarter." He looked at Richard. "So I got smart." "You sacrificed 6 months of your life," Richard said, "driving me around, pretending to be my friend, acting like I didn't know who you were?" "Yes." Jack's hands were still shaking. "Every Thursday night, I picked you up, made small talk, asked about your day, smiled when you tipped me." His voice broke. "And the whole time, I wanted to crash into a bridge, take us both out, end it. Why didn't you?" "Because Sarah deserved better than that." Jack wiped his eyes. "She deserved justice, not revenge. She deserved the truth, not another body." The lead agent approached. "Mr. Morrison, we need your statement. You okay to come to the field office?" Jack nodded. Richard was being led away. He called back. "You know what this cost you? 6 months of your life. Your sanity. Your peace. Was it worth it?" Jack turned. For the first time all night, he smiled. A real smile. Every second. The live stream ended at 3:47 a.m. Final viewer count, 1.2 million. Video saved and shared, 4.7 million times in 6 hours. Tips called into FBI hotline about Castellano's other crimes, 847. 3 months later, Jack Morrison drove his taxi through downtown Seattle. Same yellow cab, same routes, different man. The trial had lasted 7 weeks. Robert Castellano, the media stopped calling him Richard Chun after the second day, was found guilty on all counts. 25 years minimum. No parole. The other victims' families had reached out. 12 families. They'd held a memorial service together. Jack had met their children, their parents, their siblings. People whose lives had been destroyed by one man's greed. He wasn't alone in his grief anymore. A knock on his window. A young woman, mid-20s, backpack over her shoulder. "Are you available?" Jack nodded. She climbed in. "Where to?" "University District, please." Jack pulled away from the curb. The radio played soft jazz. Same station as always. "Wait," the woman said, leaning forward. "Are you? I saw you on that video. The one with the CEO. You're Jack Morrison." Jack's hands tightened on the wheel. Just slightly. "Yes. I'm sorry about your daughter." "Thank you." A pause. Then, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Your hands." The woman pointed. "In the video, when the gun was at your head, your hands didn't shake at all. But now—" She stopped, uncertain. Jack glanced at his hands. They trembled. Not much. Just enough to notice. "They shake now," he said quietly. "They used to be steady when they mattered. What changed?" Jack thought about that night. The gun. The camera. The moment he chose not to pull the trigger. The moment he chose Sarah's way instead of his own. "I stopped fighting," he said finally. "Started feeling again." The woman nodded. They drove in silence. Jack's phone buzzed. A text from Agent Rivera. "Castellano's appeals rejected. Sentence stands. 25 years. You did it." Jack Morrison smiled. His hands shook on the wheel. And for the first time in 6 months, it didn't bother him. Because Sarah would be proud. And that was enough.